What's going on, YouTube, and welcome back into the channel. I hope y'all are having a phenomenal day so far today. And in today's guide, we are going to be doing a full breakdown of every single piece of tier 2 equipment in Phasmophobia. We're going to be going all over all the good stuff, the nitty and gritty, the pros and cons, how to use them, all that good stuff. So I hope y'all learned something from this guide. I really enjoyed making this. If you do enjoy the content, make sure you smack a like on this video. Drop that subscribe right down there, baby. It's free. It's free of charge. You'll forget you did in about 10 minutes anyways. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Let's dive into this guide. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and dive into the tier 2 D.O.T.S Projector. Now, this tier 2 D.O.T.S Projector actually has less range than its tier 1 variant, but it does make up for it because it is now in a area light form, meaning it's going to go ahead and just light up far much more of the room comparatively to its tier 1 variant, where it was only going to light up a spotlight or a cone in front of you. Now, this D.O.T.S Projector is placeable, and you just put it on the ground or the wall, and you just wait for those dots to walk through it. And again, right, you're looking for those ghost apparition to walk through those dots, and you'll see that kind of silhouette format of whatever ghost you are currently dealing with. Now, these D.O.T.S Projector, you can also turn them on and off while they're placed on the ground or the wall just by left clicking on them. Go up to the D.O.T.S Projector and click it and turn it back on or off, or whatever the case may be. Now, this is actually really useful for just in case a Raiju starts hunting and you want to go ahead and test for a Raiju. Rather than picking up your equipment and throwing it down, just go ahead and click that D.O.T.S Projector, and that's going to disable the electronics in it. So that way it's actually not going to affect that Raiju's speed. But nonetheless, this is the tier 2 D.O.T.S Projector. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and dive into our tier 2 EMF reader. There's two main advantages over the tier 2 EMF reader compared to its previous variant that you really need to know about. Now, first thing is that it's going to have 5 lights. So it's going to be on the very front interface of the actual EMF reader itself. They're going to tell you which EMF you got, whether it be EMF 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Now, the second main thing you need to know about is it has a much more better audio indicator that goes along with it. So say if you leave the EMF reader in another room and you walk away, you can hear it going off, and it's going to actually give off certain tones depending on which EMF is currently being given off. And that's very, very useful because over time, once you use the EMF 2 reader a lot, you're going to be able to kind of identify which EMF you actually have from far away. But nonetheless, let's dive into the EMFs that it gives off and what they mean. EMF 1 simply just means that this device is turned on. Nothing more than that. That's all it means. EMF 2 is going to indicate any kind of light interaction, such as a door being touched or a fork being touched. Right? So EMF 3 is going to mean something has actually been thrown. So this could be a plate being thrown, a shoe being thrown, or even your own ghostwriting book being thrown. That's going to be your EMF 3. And that really is only going to be useful for you in case you're trying to identify a poltergeist that tends to throw things a lot more often than other ghosts. Your EMF 4 is going to signify that a ghost event has happened, and you're only going to get that EMF 4 interaction at the originating point of the ghost event. So where the ghost was spawning in at during the event. And it doesn't mean anything. It's not going to lead you to any kind of ghost, but that is what the EMF 4 means. Now, your EMF 5, this is where things get interesting because this is an actual EMF 2 or an EMF 3 interaction that is turned into an EMF 5. And the only way that this happens is that if the ghost you have gives off EMF 5 evidence as part of your evidence pool, it has a 25% chance to turn any EMF 2 or 3 interaction into that EMF 5. And then finally, the last thing is that if your EMF reader is going off in a hunt and it's going absolutely haywire and it's lighting up all the EMFs, that doesn't mean anything. Completely disregard any information that will show you, because that could lead you to false evidence such as an EMF 5. So if you're getting hunted and you hear EMF going off, completely ignore all audible sounds that are going from that EMF reader. All right, y'all, moving on to our next piece of tier 2 equipment in Phasmophobia, we have the ghostwriting book. Now, this is the OG original ghostwriting book, and the main differences between this one and its tier 1 variant is the fact that it has an additional +1 meters of effective range, where the ghost can actually be within that extra wide circle to interact with this ghostwriting book. It also has a higher chance of being interacted with, going up from low to medium, and this will also help you get that ghostwriting evidence a little bit faster than previously before. But other than that, that's all there is to it with the tier 2 ghostwriting book. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and dive into our next piece of tier 2 equipment, the Spirit Box. Now, this Spirit Box is of course going to be better than the tier 1 variant. This one actually has a range of 4 meters compared to the previous tier 1, which is 3 meters. So you have 4 meters where you can be standing and asking a question, so where this ghost can actually respond to you and give you an answer. Now, of course, with the tier 2, compared to the tier 1, you're going to have some upgrades, right? You're going to have a better sounding audio quality response from the ghost. You're going to have, of course, like we discussed, a much higher range, and you're also going to have a display screen that's going to tell you various different things. Now, on this display screen at the top left, you're going to have a little microphone symbol. And what this microphone symbol basically is just going to tell you that the game is in fact receiving some kind of vocal input from you asking a question, which is a good thing. Now, next on the list is going to be this bottom right symbol, and that's going to be an X. Now, as long as this X is illuminating after you ask a question, what that means is that the game is registering and actually understanding the question you are asking the game. So it is a valid question that the ghost can respond to, and if you don't get a response, then the ghost just is not responding to you. Now, the third and last symbol is going to be your ghost symbol at the bottom right. Now, this is, of course, your Spirit Box response. If you get this, you're going to go ahead and get your first ever Spirit Box response here on the tier 2 Spirit Box. Now, something pretty cool about the Spirit Box is that you don't even have to have the Spirit Box in your hand to get a response. As long as it's turned on, it can be on the ground or even in a teammate's hand, and you can still get a response from it. Just make sure you're asking those questions loud and clear, and you're asking valid questions that the game actually recognizes. Now, with the Spirit Box though, there's one caveat that you have to ensure is in place before you start asking questions. Now, you have to actually ensure that the lights in the room are turned off. You cannot have lights in the room turned on, or else the Spirit Box will not work. Check out some of these clips I got for you here. How old are you? Where are you? You close? That's the unique D.O.T Spirit Box response, chat. That's it. Are you close? Are you far? Are you near? Where are you? How old are you? Are you close?
I'm close.
How old are you?
An elderly individual.
Who hurt you? Are you hurt?
Sorry.
Are you young?
Elderly.
And one last thing to note down about the Spirit Box is that in the overview tab here in your journal, if you're playing on either amateur or intermediate, it's actually going to tell you whether the ghost is going to respond to people who are alone or if it's going to respond to anybody, no matter how many people are in the room. And again, this is only for amateur and intermediate, but on professional or above, this information will actually not be available to you. It's going to say we're unsure. So just be aware of that. This will actually tell you on those earlier beginner stage difficulty modes that'll kind of help you determine what you need to do with the Spirit Box. But this is a very important detail to pay attention to. All right, y'all, on to our next piece of tier 2 equipment. We have the thermometer. Now, as discussed in our tier 1 equipment guide, which I will link down below and above here on screen for you, this is not the best thermometer, right? The tier 1 thermometer, as of right now, as of this upload date, is still the best thermometer practically because you can set it and forget it. But nonetheless, let's go over the tier 2. So the tier 2 is on paper going to have a faster charge time that you can actually hold down the button and get the actual temperature of the room with, and it's going to be an actual display screen. It's a little bit more clear, and it's going to be a little bit more accurate, right, on paper. But in reality, tier 1 is always better for this thermometer until they find a way to patch this or fix this. But this is the tier 2 thermometer. Make sure you're standing in the room while you're taking temperatures, because a common misconception, like I'm showing here in this clip, is that the tier 2 thermometer actually has a range where wherever you point it, no matter what room you're in, as long as you're pointing it, that's going to be the actual reading of the room, which is false. Where you are standing at presently in that room is the temperature you are going to get, which you can see here on Tanglewood. There's this fine line that divides the living room from the hallway, and as I take these temperatures, even as I'm pointing in the room, it's still going to give me whatever temperature I'm standing on in that moment. So make sure you're aware of that while using the tier 2 thermometer. Alrighty, y'all, on to our next piece of equipment. We have the UV flashlight. Now, this UV flashlight has a narrow cone, which is meaning that it's going to be less of an area of light that you're actually going to get from the black light that's emitting out of it, but you are going to be able to have far more range, so you can spot those fingerprints and or those footprints from much further away. Now, most players actually prefer the glow stick, which is the tier 1 variant of this item, because it gives a much more area light, and you can actually set the glow stick down and it's going to actually emit its light upwards, so you can still get those easy fingerprint photos compared to the torch, where you may actually have to set this torch or flashlight down on a surface level with that fingerprint to actually charge it while not holding it, so you can still get that camera photo. So a little bit more trickier, but this is much more better in the sense that you have a much faster charge time of 5 seconds. So from the time that black light actually hits the door, it's only going to take 5 seconds to fully charge that fingerprint to where you can actually take a photo of it reliably, compared to the glow stick, which is 10 seconds. So pick your poison, but I prefer, me personally, the tier 1 glow stick over this tier 2 black light. That's just me personally, but I got examples, as you're seeing here, of these fingerprints and of these footprints with the tier 2 UV flashlight. All right, y'all, moving on to our next piece of tier 2 equipment, we have the video camera. Now, this video camera isn't much different in regards to things that it can do compared to its tier 1 variant, but you do get a better night vision screen. So it's gonna be a little bit bigger of an actual LCD screen for you to actually look through, and it's also gonna be of much better quality. It's not gonna be that interesting green tint on the actual LCD screen. This is gonna be a nice black and white screen for you to actually see the contrast between those floating white dots and maybe some colder spots that are actually in the room. So this is the tier 2 video camera. Make sure you look through it to find those ghost orbs, and you're gonna have a much easier time using this one compared to its tier 1 variant. All right, y'all, now that our main evidence finding equipment is out of the way, let's move on to some of our consumables. Next up, we have the Crucifix. Now, the tier 2 Crucifix is way better than the tier 1 because it actually has 2 uses now per Crucifix, compared to the tier 1 Crucifix, which was only 1 use. But with the tier 2 Crucifix, you also have an extended range that is now 4 meters. But something to note down that actually relates to the Demon's special ability, to where it actually extends your Crucifix range up to 50% more than the range noted in the Phasmophobia storefront. So for the tier 2 Crucifix, it's going to be going up from 4 meters all the way up to 6 meters, which is a huge upgrade. But that is, again, just for the Demon special ability. But again, this is the tier 2 Crucifix, and because it is consumable, if you use this Crucifix, even only if one of the arms gets burned off of it, you have now consumed that Crucifix, and you have to buy another one in the store after your match is over. That is the tier 2 Crucifix. It's a phenomenal piece of equipment, and I recommend getting up to the tier 2 as fast as possible, as this will help you survive longer in those investigations. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and dive in to our next piece of consumable equipment. We have our firelight, aka the candle. Now, this tier 2 candle actually has the same range as its tier 1 variant, which is 2 meters, but it does have some upgraded buffs to it that make it better, of course, as it's tier 2. Right now, this candle will actually last for 5 full minutes compared to its previous tier 1 variant, which is only 3 minutes. So you do get a lot longer of a burn time on this candle. Now, one of the huge buffs that not a lot of people take advantage of is the fact that this candle actually reduces your sanity drain by 50%. That is so much sanity reduction that a lot of people don't use on those higher game modes such as Nightmare or Insanity to actually preserve their sanity and make their matches last longer. So while you're standing within that 2 meter radius of this candle, you will have a passive sanity drain reduction of 50% compared to the tier 1, which is 33%. This candle is phenomenal. Definitely recommend using it for those higher game modes to reduce that sanity drain that you get in the background. All right, y'all, moving on to our next piece of equipment, we have the tier 2 flashlight. Now, this flashlight actually has the same narrow cone that the Tier 1 does, but with the Tier 2, of course, as you would expect, this flashlight is going to be a little bit brighter. It's going to have a medium intensity compared to the Tier 1, which is a low intensity, rated in the Phasmophobia storefront information page. Now, again, there's not much about the flashlight, so we're not going to talk about it too much, but point the way to where you want to go, and this flashlight will help you light the way to wherever you're looking. But keep in mind, make sure this flashlight is turned off in your hand, or you just throw it on the ground when the ghost is hunting, or else it will find you and it will come and kill you if you have that flashlight turned on. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and talk about our next piece of Tier 2 equipment. We have the headgear slot. Now, for the Tier 2 headgear slot, we're actually given a headlamp or a flashlight on our head. And this is extremely useful because this actually frees up and opens the third inventory slot in your inventory if you are a player who uses the handheld flashlight quite often. And this can actually speed up your runs and make your Phasmophobia games just a little bit quicker by being able to get more equipment in the investigation area a lot more faster. Now, this is actually rated to have a low intensity and a narrow cone spotlight in the Phasmophobia storefront information page, which is the same exact statistics as the Tier 1 flashlight. But I find the headlamp to actually be a lot more effective and a lot more brighter than your Tier 1 handheld flashlight. But with this headgear slot, please keep in mind that this is the same as a flashlight. So if you do not hold long press the T button on your keyboard, which is to activate it and to turn it on and off, if you don't ensure that it's turned off while a ghost is hunting, it will come and find you, as this is an electronic device. The ghost will get you no matter where you're at. So again, make sure this headlamp is turned off while you're hiding, or else you could be putting yourself and your teammates at risk in a hiding spot. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and dive into our next piece of Tier 2 equipment, and we have the lighter. Now, this lighter is a massive upgrade compared to its Tier 1 predecessor, which of course was the Matchbox. And the reason being is because the Tier 2 lighter actually lasts for 5 entire minutes. That's 5 minutes that you could be walking around with that lighter lit before it even goes out. Now, once it goes out though, it's done. You have to get a new one. So that is something that is a caveat, but more than likely you won't use this entire lighter for the rest of your match. You're only going to really generally need 1 or maybe 2 in case you actually drop it and lose it. But this lasts for 5 minutes again compared to its Tier 1 predecessor, which was only 10 seconds, where a match, you would have to strike it on the side of the box and it would only burn for 10 seconds until you have to get a new match out of that box. So this lighter is a big upgrade. And another thing about it is that you can actually see the fluid in the lighter, so you can kind of gauge how much time remaining left you have to use that lighter before all the fluid is gone. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and talk about our next piece of consumable equipment, and by far the most important piece of consumable equipment. We're talking about the Smudge Stick, baby. Let's dive into it. So this Tier 2 Smudge Stick actually has a range of 4 meters compared to 3 meters. So you don't need to really get that close to the ghost to use this Smudge Stick, but I always recommend lighting it and then running up to the ghost to make sure you don't accidentally die. Again, you don't need to get really close to this ghost and then light it. Light the Smudge Stick and then get close to the ghost. Now, this Tier 2 Smudge Stick has a 6-second duration compared to its Tier 1 predecessor, which had a 5-second duration. Meaning, the moment you light that Smudge Stick, it's gonna burn for 6 whole seconds. Now, there's a big misconception with this, especially this about the Smudge Stick, is that people tend to think that 6-second duration is how long the ghost will essentially be blind, and that's completely false. This 6-second duration refers to the burn time of that actual Smudge Stick. Now, a big benefit and a big pro about this Smudge Stick, again compared to its Tier 1 predecessor, is that it actually is going to slow the ghost down for 5 whole seconds. So this ghost is going to be slowed down, and you are going to have a better and easier chance to get away from the ghost and actually find that hiding spot. Now, if you're trying to identify a ghost based off of its actual ghost speed, I highly recommend you make sure that you are able to differentiate the speed change from when you actually smudge this ghost and what that speed of the ghost is in that moment, because a lot of people tend to get confused once they smudge the ghost, and then they tend to think it may be a Hantu switching rooms, or they could tend to think it may be a Diogen or whatever, and then the hunt ends before the ghost picks up speed. So keep this in mind when you're smudging the ghost, right? To not take that speed seriously, only use it to get away from the actual ghost. All right, y'all, moving on to our next piece of equipment, we have the motion sensor. Now, as it should be, this motion sensor is a massive upgrade from its tier 1 predecessor. With the tier 2, you actually obtain 2 lasers that can protrude out 45-degree angles from themselves respectively, and you can actually have those 2 lasers point out and have more options for the ghost to actually walk through. So it's a big upgrade, and you also get a sound indicator when this happens so you can actually hear when it goes off while you're in the house. Now, this option is of course useful because you get more coverage, right? And just like the tier 1, you can also click it again to turn it off. So again, in order to turn it on and to get those 2 lasers, once you place the motion sensor, go ahead and left click on that motion sensor itself that's on the wall or the ground, and that's how you actually get those 2 motion sensors to come out. But other than that, that is all for the motion sensor tier 2. It is a big upgrade, and again, you can get motion sensor data from the truck like you see here. All right, y'all, on to our next piece of tier 2 equipment. We have the Parabolic Microphone. Now, with this tier 2 Parabolic Microphone, you gain an additional 10 meters of range, totaling for up to 30 meters of audible range compared to its tier 1 predecessor, which was only 20 meters. So with this tier 2, of course, because it has more range, it is far more practical on those medium and even better yet, those larger size maps such as Sunny Meadows. This is going to help you detect the ghost room from a safe distance and from extremely far away. 30 meters in game is pretty darn far, so this is going to be a massive upgrade for you. And you're also going to get a display screen that's going to give you the decibel reading of whatever interaction that happened and how loud it actually was. Now, you may find this useful, you may find this not so useful. I don't really pay attention to it too much just because it doesn't really give you too much valuable information, but it does tell you how loud the interaction is. So maybe if you're hunting for a poltergeist and you think it is and you're getting a lot of throws and a lot of EMF 3 interactions, this could help you confirm that you may have a poltergeist that's actually doing hard throws, and that's one of its special abilities where it can throw an object pretty hard. So this is the tier 2 Parabolic Microphone, but other than that, there's not much to it. Get that side objective and get that cash. All right, y'all, moving right along to our next piece of tier 2 equipment, we have the tier 2 photo camera. Now, with this photo camera, the main thing that you're going to gain from this upgrade is the fact that you have less time between photos. So you can spam that mouse and really start taking those photos a lot quicker compared to its tier 1 predecessor, which was of course right, the tier 1 photo camera. Now, with this photo camera, you also get a display screen, which doesn't really do much for you. I mean, it's more or less just aesthetics. But you also have some negatives and you have some cons with this, which is actually surprising because it's an upgrade. This is now an electronic device. So the tier 1 photo camera was not electronic. The tier 2, which is what we're talking about here in this clip right here, this one is electronic. So you want to make sure that you throw this out of your hand if you are getting hunted, or else this is going to be an electronic device and this will cause the ghost to drop a waypoint on your location and come and try and find you wherever it last detected that electronic equipment in your hand. So make sure you throw that electronic equipment down, i.e. that photo camera, or else it will come and find you. But other than that, that's the tier 2 photo camera. Make sure you get those photos, and this is going to be a lot easier to grab those ghost photos during a hunt with this tier 2 photo camera. All right, y'all, moving on to our next piece of tier 2 equipment, we have your salt. Now, just like some of our other ones, this is a massive upgrade from its tier 1 predecessor. A thing that you gain about this salt is not only do you get 3 uses compared to the tier 1, which was only 2 uses, but with this tier 2 salt, you also gain a line pattern in the salt that you can actually place in doorways. That way you can better cover those doorways and those entryways, so that way you can ensure that you're getting those footsteps and the ghost may not be walking around just that one singular pile of salt that you have with the tier 1. So that's part of the tier 2 upgrade here. It's very useful for covering those long doorways and really ensuring that you're not missing any of those potential salt photos. But other than that, that's all there is to it with the salt. You have 3 uses instead of 2, and it's now a line form pattern versus just a little blob on the ground. All right, y'all, on to our next piece of tier 2 consumable equipment. We're talking about the Sanity Pills. Now, there's not much to it, so this is going to be a quick one, But the tier 2 sanity pills will restore your sanity for now 20 seconds. So from the time you take that sanity pill to the time your sanity is fully restored for whatever amount of pills you took, that's going to be 20 seconds compared to the tier 1 predecessor, which is only 30 seconds. So you will gain your sanity a little bit quicker. And again, another tip, before you enter back into the house, I highly recommend just kind of waiting around in the truck or in the front yard, or just don't go in the investigation area for at least 20 seconds after taking these pills. That way you can ensure that your sanity has reached that full potential that you were expecting. And again, the sanity restored is dependent on the level of difficulty of the match that you're playing on, whether it be Nightmare, Intermediate, Professional, etc. All right, y'all, moving right along to our next piece of tier 2 equipment, we have the tier 2 sound sensor. Now, you only get one upgrade to this tier 2 sound sensor compared to its tier 1 predecessor, which comparatively to some of our other stuff isn't too much, but it is an upgrade nonetheless. And that upgrade is now you have a 15-meter range option that you can change to in the truck. So the tier 1 predecessor, you can only go between 5 and 10 meters from the truck, but now you can go 5, 10, and 15 meters. So this tier 2 sound sensor is a lot more practical and far more useful on those medium-sized maps as well as those large-sized maps for being able to cover a far larger range respectively, right? So this is the only upgrade for the sound sensor, but nonetheless, it's an upgrade. And again, you can control these ranges and change them by clicking on the arrows in the truck. All right, y'all, on to our last piece of tier 2 equipment. We have the tier 2 tripod. Now, you do gain a massive upgrade to this tripod compared to its tier 1 predecessor, but only one upgrade, and that is you have rotational control from the truck. And what I'm referring to is you can quite literally rotate the tripod and rotate the video camera that you have placed on top of it a full 360 degrees in either direction, left or right. This is huge. This is a game changer because this can help you stay in the truck longer and lose less sanity while looking for those ghost orbs. So maybe the ghost orbs aren't really showing up in that one corner of the room that you may have placed it in. You can just rotate the tripod remotely from the truck and try and look for those ghost orbs maybe behind where you originally placed it. It's such a useful tool. This is the tier 2 tripod's biggest upgrade. Other than that, there's really not much more to it. It has the same knockdown chance as well that its tier 1 predecessor does. So there's gonna have the same chance that this can get knocked down, but nonetheless, you have rotational control now remotely from the truck. This is wild. This is huge. Definitely take advantage of this when you can. All right, y'all, that's gonna wrap up our official tier 2 equipment guide for Phasmophobia. This by far was one of my most intricate guides yet, so I really do hope that you all enjoyed. There's a ton of clips in here and a ton of good information, and I hope you guys can pull and use some of this information and implement them into your own games to make you a better player at Phasmophobia and a more knowledgeable player regarding all of these equipment and which equipment to use in certain situations and which tiers to use and maybe not use in certain situations, etc., etc. So again, if you enjoyed, make sure you drop a like, hit that subscribe, baby, if you're feeling frisky, because it helps the channel out quite a lot. And I hope you guys have a great day. Y'all take care.